if I could add to that one, the radars or with other technical equipment that would make it possible to determine that this artillery shell came from that position and landed in that position. That is not the equipment included in this mission. We have human beings, they have themselves, they have their radio, they have their binoculars, and that's it.
Would you like
CCTV? CCTV.
My question is, it is reported that some armed groups have already taken control of some areas, especially in the northeast like Italy. Do you observers have seen, have witnessed such things? These areas has become, in some extent, it has become independent. And my second question, it is reported that some countries have provided anti-aircraft and anti-tank weapons. Do you see the armed groups using such weapons?
Let me address the first question. Going back to the questions by Reuters. The situation in many of these cities and in the villages, they are different. There's different groups, there's neighborhoods, there's villages where different groups are in control. It's not a unified entity across Syria. When we go into the hotspot areas, we are indeed leaving the area that is under full control of the government forces, and we're going into an area where there are armed opposition groups in control of that local area. I do not see a situation in which the control of these areas are getting bigger. I'm rather seeing a situation in which the control of these areas are being challenged.
There's another question.
Oh, I forgot the other one again. That was the weaponry. No, I don't have information to confirm what kind of weaponry is available and what kind of weaponry is in use in this context.
My question about what's happening in Al-Hula. I want to ask if you have private information about what's happening in Al-Hula. Especially, there's a lot of media said the Syrian army towards what happened in Al-Hula, like killed people and killed children. What's you have information about that?
The statement we issued after Al-Hula is still valid, which means we have been there with an investigating team. We have interviewed locals with one story, and we have interviewed locals that has another story. The circumstances leading up to Al-Hula and the detailed circumstances, the facts related to the incident itself, still remains unclear to us. We have put this together, the facts that we could establish by what we saw on the ground. We have put together the statements, the witness interviews, and we have sent that as a report to UN headquarters New York. And then the assessment on what's the way forward, will there be a different investigation, is a matter for headquarters in this context. But if we are asked, obviously we are on the ground and could help facilitate that. And the military observers in this mission, they share that frustration, which is an understandable frustration, with the Syrians' experience. Well, I'll repeat it in English. I'm not sure if every one of you speak Arabic. I think if I repeat, if you forgive me for repeating your question, the first question was about my level of frustration related to the, let's say, mandated tasks of the mission. And the other one was related to whether I consider the mission a failure or not. Close. The frustration question is easy to answer because I've answered it already. All the civilian staff in UNSMIS, all the observers, including myself, we are frustrated because we see that the violence is continuing and it has increased in the last few days. You would be surprised by how many of the civilian staff and the military observers in UNSMIS have come to Syria because they want to serve the welfare and the aspirations of the Syrian people. So obviously for all of us, it's frustrating to see that the level of violence is continuing. We would like to see last week, yesterday, not tomorrow or next week, a different situation where those who have their fingers on the triggers, whomever they are, make the decision to take that finger off the triggers and give the Syrian people a chance to move forward with us as a key element to assist in that process. So obviously there's frustration. On the other side, the speed of deployment of the mission, the rapid deployment, and the fact that we were able in a matter of 3 weeks to get on the ground, to be present through good facilitation, and to be the mechanism, the tool that could help such a peaceful transition is something that makes us proud. Another element that makes me proud is the courage of the civilian staff and the military observers when they go into these areas and getting very, very close to a situation where they end up in the middle of a combat situation. The courage that they are demonstrating because they are eager, not only the mission as such, but each single one to serve a reduction of violence and the welfare of the Syrian people is something that makes me very proud every day. So there's a mix. On one hand, I'm frustrated because we are not seeing a very clear and determined progress on the other elements of the 6-point plan. But at the same time, there's reason to be proud of the activities by my observers and the risk they are taking, the courage they are demonstrating for the benefit of the Syrian people. There's one aspect of this that is very frequently, let's say, addressed, and that is, why are you, UNSMIS, not stopping the violence, not enforcing a ceasefire, not imposing a ceasefire? I know that all of you know it, but it's worth saying over and over again that that is not the mandated tasks of UNSMIS. That is not what UNSMIS is equipped for. We are equipped for monitoring and reporting and verifying facts on the ground. And that role in itself is extremely valuable, and that role in itself can facilitate a positive way forward if the parties with their fingers on the trigger decide to seize that opportunity. Now, as we speak, now is the time to demonstrate that all of these parties are willing. Now is the time for them to prove that they have the aspirations and the welfare of the Syrian people in mind, because more violence is only going to lead to more tragedies, more animosity, and feed the cycle of violence. So now is the time for all parties to prove that they respect, because this is also about respect for the Syrian people. They respect the Syrian people and they respect their aspirations for a peaceful future.
سؤالي بس عن تعليقه على الاعتداء على الصحفيين اللي تعرضوا مراسلنا بدير الزور لما تم 13.
The question was related to Syrian journalists or journalists in general being hurt or targeted when they're trying to do their job.
Especially our journalists.
I know. If we go back to let's say the bigger picture again, I sincerely believe from all the operations, all the places that I've worked in and visited during my 34 years now in this business, that even if we argue many times that the first victim in a conflict is the truth, and maybe exactly because of that, the importance of having journalists on the ground that can gain knowledge of the local situation, although that is something you have already, but I'm speaking now about all journalists, to gain that knowledge and to make sure that the media picture in the international arena is more reflecting the complicated situation and the nuances in the situation than a picture that is picked up because you are listening to a story and you want to tell that story. This is incredibly important. I think it serves any crisis to have media present to report. 15 different media voices reporting from the same incident is going to give you a fairly good picture, and that is very important. I'm sad that journalists, in particular the ones you're referring to, was wounded. It's similar to the risks taken by my observers. The journalists are doing an incredibly important job for the sake of the Syrian people. It's about bringing the stories, it's about bringing the truth, it's about gaining knowledge of the local situation. So I would urge anyone to respect the presence of journalists and their work so that the story, the qualified story, will come out.
Do you think that the rebels are targeting Syrian TV specifically so that they don't cover the truth that's happening?
It's obviously
observers, a lot of people who are ready to work here and to help to find the truth. On the other hand, you say that 300 observers, you can cover Damascus with these people. UN is going to increase the number of the observers, or you, like chief of the mission, have you asked the UN to increase the number of observers who can cover more parts of the country? It's the first question. And the second is, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said a lot of times that there are some forces that are trying to do this mission, to repeat this scenario which had Arab League mission. And not all parties are interested in success of the mission. So you said that now it's time to prove that all the parties have the aspiration to peaceful transition. Do they have this aspiration?
It's a question you should ask them, of course, and I'm sure you will do it. It would not surprise anyone, and indeed not journalists like yourself, that there are many agendas involved in the complicated crisis in Syria. And there are stated agendas, and there are unstated agendas. I'm not very well qualified to predict or to assess what are the agendas of these different groups, but I'm convinced that there are lots of agendas. It makes the crisis even more complicated. Your specific question was related to whether more observers was needed. Now, the key to a peaceful way forward in this crisis is not the observer mission on the ground. It is the parties who make the judgment. Are we better served with more violence for our interests, or are we better served by choosing a different path? That path is available, but it's not for me to make that choice for them. We are here as a mechanism that can assist in that process and as a factual voice from the ground. The parties need to decide that this is the way forward, which means whether I have 300, 600 or 1,000 observers is not going to change that picture. The responsibility for making the right choices, respecting the welfare of the Syrian people and their aspirations, is with the parties, is with those who have their hands on the triggers.